It's good. Yeah, it's on. Good evening. Good evening. It's great to see everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Alan Grant. I'm Dean of the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences at Virginia Tech, and I'm so pleased to be here this evening with all of you and to be part of this evening's event entitled Why So Few Women in STEM. This is an opportunity for us to share experiences and build professional networks and explore industry trends, and is actually part of the College of Sciences Women in Sciences program, which is designed to create a community to support, mentor, and empower women scientists across the entire university. The Virginia Tech Alumni Association suggested that including other colleges and their alumni would be a good way to expand this network of women working in STEM. During this evening's panel discussion, we'll hear from some of our Virginia Tech alumni who are navigating the challenges and excelling in fields that have been male-dominated. And we have an excellent panel of women who are Virginia Tech alumni from across the university who will share some of their lessons learned in navigating their careers. Following the panel discussion, there will be an ongoing networking reception out where we were earlier this evening with alumni and our university faculty and staff. And many thanks to our panelists for joining us this evening. It's great that you could be here and be part of this event. This is a great way to celebrate the extraordinary contributions of women in STEM, and we all look forward to the conversations and the networking that will come from this evening's activities. My colleague and friend, Dean Sally Morton, is with us this evening and will be our moderator and will introduce each of the panelists in a minute. Dr. Morton joined the College of Science at Virginia Tech as Dean in 2016. She comes to us from the University of Pittsburgh, where she was biostatistics chair. She also served as the Vice President for Statistics and Epidemiology at RTI International and also was head of the RAND Corporation Statistics Group. She earned her bachelor's, her master's, and her doctoral degrees all from Stanford University, as well as a master's degree from London School of Economics. So please join me in welcoming Dean Morton.
Okay, great. So thank you, Alan. I'm delighted to be here with all of you. Thank you for coming this evening. As you've heard from Alan, the Virginia Tech Women in the Sciences, or WITS, keep your wits about you. The one time I've made up an acronym that actually works. It's a community we've created to really encourage, mentor, and support women at all levels, undergraduate, graduate, postdocs, faculty, and staff. And I'm actually so excited this evening that we have several high school students with us. Welcome. We're so excited you're here. We look forward to your questions. And I know, like me, you'll learn a lot from our panel. So as you've heard, the purpose of tonight's event is to hear from our esteemed panelists who will share their wisdom and experience. And I'll begin by giving some brief introductions. And I'll have the advantage of the first question posed to the panelists, but I hope this will be very organic and it'll be a dialogue and a conversation with all of you. So please jump in with your questions. We are live streaming this event, and actually the Women in the Geosciences is hosting a pizza party back in Blacksburg. Hello, back to Blacksburg. So thank you to Dr. Michelle Stalker. She is a geosciences faculty member who's hosting that. And I've also heard that we have several alumni chapters who are also live streaming this event. So we're so glad to have you here with us. So let me tell you about our panelists. As you've heard, they come from across the colleges at Virginia Tech. First panelist is Dee Helfenstein from the College of Science. She received her BS in psychology in 1986, and she is now a senior vice president at Booz Allen Hamilton. Our second panelist from the College of Natural Resources and Environment, Sharisa Morris. She has a BS and also an MS in forestry and wildlife conservation. and she is actually Chief of Staff for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Our third panelist from the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences is Callie Ralphs-Wang. She received her PhD in biochemistry in 2009. She is a research advisor at the Global Development Lab of USAID, that's the U.S. Agency for International Development. And our last panelist is Simone Acha. She's from the College of Engineering. She received a BS in Industrial and Systems Engineering in 1987. She's now the owner of her own consulting firm and previously was CEO of alumnae Solutions Incorporated. I've had the opportunity to speak with each of our panelists, and I'm so excited to learn more from them. So again, I have the advantage of the first question. It is, you've had a career juggling professional and personal responsibilities. You've made different scientific contributions. You've served as a scientist and as a leader. But let's go back to your earlier days. Was there ever a time when someone suggested to you that you should take a different path because you were a girl? Tell us about when that happened and what you did to overcome that, and what advice you would have for all of us who encounter that kind of challenge. So I don't know whether we want to go in a particular order. Dee Dee?
So I think, I'm sorry.
Did you turn it on?
Yeah, I did. All right. So I think as women, we probably encounter that kind of all throughout our career at different phases. I think, for me personally, it started with my dad saying that I should be a business major, not a psychology major. What are you going to do with a psychology major? But also, I think it was the first time it really hit me hard was when I was beginning my consulting career, and I was leading a program with the Department of Defense. And I had a senior male sitting next to me, and even though I was presenting, every question from the admiral was directed to my colleague. And it took me a while to finally work up the nerve to turn to my colleague and say, you know what, it is your responsibility to not answer those questions, but to redirect them back to me and to redirect that client to me. And I think it takes not only recognizing the situation you're in, but actually taking that kind of unflinching courage to step forward and really kind of talk to your colleagues or talk to the individual who's maybe making an assumption about you and saying, you need to be my advocate here too. Not just my being my own advocate, but you need to be my advocate too.
Wow.
Thank you. So mine was actually once I was already working as a biotech. I had a supervisor who I think had the best of intentions in trying to keep me safe. He had a high school daughter, and I reminded him of her, and he thought that was a sweet thing. And I had gone to Virginia Tech, and I came out as an exemplary biotech. Virginia Tech really prepares you for what you need to do in the field, and I could not wait to hit the ground running. And my entire first year was spent being kept in the office because it wasn't safe for me to go into the field. Somebody might attack me. I saw people who had nowhere near the skill level that I had attempting to do things that I knew I was exceptional doing. The largest job I was given by that particular supervisor was to reorganize the filing room, but not the files in the filing cabinet, because those are important, literally the filing cabinets. But he gave me the tip that I need to make sure that the drawers could open all the way, so don't get hung up. And so I responded by emailing my transcripts around and letting them know how much Virginia Tech had taught me, and having to push and fight to exhibit this anytime I was actually allowed to go in a field with a large group that would protect me. Unfortunately, with that particular supervisor, he could not get over his hang-up because it was his hang-up. And I had to wait until I had another supervisor who was phenomenally supportive. And her answer, well, if I asked to do something, she would ask, can we do it cheaply? And I would say, yes. And she would say, great, yes. And it was wonderful.
Wow.
Oh, you don't need that one.
Yeah. So, just give it a press, and then it'll go.
Green.
Wait just a bit. Try it, and then just wait.
Oh, don't hold it.
Okay. It's okay. There it goes.
Oh, okay.
So I failed my first test as a panelist. So in full disclosure, Dean Morton did kind of prompt us ahead of time, say, okay, the first question I'm going to ask you is this. So I was kind of like racking my brain for the last 30 minutes thinking, oh, was there a time when someone told me I couldn't do something? And so I've been thinking about it, and in all honesty, I would say I feel that I've been lucky that I couldn't think of something immediately. I feel that I've had many people that have supported me, but I think some of my barriers have come more internally than externally, and so a situation that I'm in right now is. I'm transitioning from I'm a research advisor with a team right now, and we support scientists in developing countries, and I'm transitioning to a new role in a new bureau where I'm actually supervising a small team. It's my first official management position. And it's a completely different team. It's a completely different set of things to learn. And so I come into this new position and I just am like, oh, my employees know more than I do about this. And why did they hire me? I mean, I have a lot of this kind of self-doubt. So I was talking to a friend of mine about this. And she was like, do you think a man would think that if he was in that position? And it was sort of an aha moment for me where I was like, oh, you know what? I don't have to. My comfort zone is really when I'm an expert at something. And when I'm an expert at something, then I can feel like I can be in charge of this. And that's how I am in my old job. But in this new job, I'm not an expert. And it's been really uncomfortable for me. But I think the realization that I don't have to be an expert, but I can still be in charge. I can learn, has been it's something I'm grappling with, but something I'm trying to learn from.
Well, as Dee Dee said before, all those challenges that you get presented start sometimes early in life. I'm an industrial engineer. Again, engineering not as common for females, especially back in 1982 when I showed up. And they told us we were already outnumbered and the chances that we'd make it through was pretty slim. But I co-opted, did a lot of things to try to put the chips in my favor. My first assignment out was with the mighty oval I like to call DuPont. Got up to Wilmington, Delaware. They said, don't unpack. We're sending you down to Richmond, Virginia, because you're an industrial engineer, and you'll go down and support the manufacturing operations in Richmond. So I am 22, blonde, from Virginia, and a little bit, Northern Virginia native. And I get to Richmond, Virginia, and it's, of course, very much a manufacturing facility with a local union. And they show me my line is going to be Nomex wash draw. And I wasn't there probably 2 weeks, and I heard there was a pool going around for how long I would last in the position as a supervisor. So that was kind of the first thing. And of course, anybody who knows me I rise to a challenge. The minute you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to dig my heels in and show you how I can. So that's pretty much what I did. I will tell you, it's all men on the Nomex lines because of the ICL-TCL chemical combination, which tends to produce or has a danger of producing sterility. So it's me and a bunch of men, the youngest one of which is 35 years of age. So I got in there. I would actually learn the manufacturing processes with them and from them. I engaged them, made sure I understood what I was doing. And I think the day that they finally decided that I was actually one of their favorites was when I stood up for them on an issue that we had on manufacturing production, where I understood what had happened, was able to educate the leadership on what had happened. And when I protected my line, well, that's when they said, yep, she's our leader. And that was it. So from there we did it.
Wow. Great answers. So I want to open it up for the floor. Does anyone have a question for our panelists? Sorry, I'm trying to pass the test as well. Any questions? We need you to use the microphone so the live streaming can hear you. Any questions? I can launch it. Yeah, please.
Hi. I would like to ask the panel, full of very accomplished women, if there is something that you would like to share with us that is something that you'd like to be known for, and or what are your next aspirations?
And please go in any order.
I can go first. I think, other than being known for talking a lot, which I do, is I'm not afraid of a challenge, and in particular, I love change. I know a lot of people are frightened by change. For me, it actually is sort of my energy drink. So I love to take it in and go with it. So I think I'm kind of known for embracing change and being flexible on my feet, being able to address problems in the heat of the moment. My next aspirations, in fact, my hats go off to Virginia Tech for having an entrepreneur group there now and an education that allows for entrepreneurship. As Sally mentioned earlier, I was the CEO and the founder of Illumina Solutions, which was a government contracting firm that I sold. I'm in the process right now of working through some ideas for the next adventure, because I tell everybody it's not a venture, it's an adventure, and we go into it. So that's where I am right now.
Thank you.
Okay. I run a program called PEER, Partnerships for Enhanced Engagement and Research. It's supported by the U.S. Agency for International Development, and we support scientists in developing countries. This is my passion. What I do is my passion. If you asked me in graduate school, what do you want to do with your life? I would have told you I want to support scientists in developing countries, which I know is like a very specific thing. So I'm really happy I'm doing what I'm doing, and I want to continue to figure out how do we help scientists in other parts of the world build the capacity that they need to help their countries, just like we have capacity here to make advances in our society.
All right. So I have a grandfather who is well known for his effect as a mentor. He had been a lawyer, and then he was a judge, and he produced many, many, many phenomenal judges in Maryland. I want to do that, not judges, but help produce phenomenal people. I think that my greatest accomplishment has not been achieved yet. I have no idea what that's going to be. I do not know where this world is going to take me. I'm in a position right now that I know I'm going to be in until I'm not, and that's about it. and I would hope that my next point of service would be somewhere where there are horrendous problems that need phenomenal solutions, and I'd have a part in helping work that out. But I would hope that my legacy would be somebody who could amplify and exponentially create amazing scientists. Oh, you got one.
Is it still on?
Oh, sorry. Okay.
So, I mean, I certainly love what I'm doing, and I've certainly gotten the opportunity to do lots of different challenges. But for me right now, what I'm really focused on is how do I pay it forward? And so I am the women's lead. I'm the lead of our women's agenda within the firm. I'm also on the board of CPE, which is Capital Partners for Education, which focuses on low-income and at-risk students, or in high school students within the Washington, D.C. area, and giving them one-on-one mentorship. I'm also on the board of Vinetta, which focuses on women entrepreneurs. So women entrepreneurs only get about 2% of the funding out there, capital VC funding. And how do we get more access for women entrepreneurs to capital funding, as well as connections? And so it's really about, for me right now in my career, not only what I'm doing at work, but what am I doing within the firm and outside of work to really pay it forward and bring women forward and really advance their careers or their agendas.
Do we have another question over there?
To piggyback on what Dee Dee just said, I'm wondering if any of you guys could respond to whether or not you had a mentor to help you pave that path, or were you trailblazing all by your lonesome, and what kind of effect or impact that might have had on that. And then the second part of the question is, what can we do or to support or encourage other people to mentor and help women in the workforce?
Yeah, that's great. So I think mentorship is incredibly important, but so is sponsorship. And I think those are two different things, and really understanding the difference between those things. Mentors are people who will give you advice and counsel versus sponsors who will really advocate for you, put their own careers on the line to really move your career forward. And you need both in your career. And it is really, I think, important to recognize and select your mentors along the way that are different, right? And so looking at people and saying, this person's really good at people stuff or business development or whatever, leadership, and really picking your mentors based on what they're good at and using them for those skills and capabilities, because not everyone's good at everything, right? But recognizing that your mentors need to change as you and your career and your goals change. That's incredibly important. But equally important is making sure that you have sponsors. Someone who is really advocating for you and putting their career on the line for you and really pushing your career as much as they're pushing your own career. That's so important. And I think sometimes as women, we are afraid to ask for that. So we are afraid to really say, where it's easy to ask for advice and counsel and mentorship, but it's harder to ask for that sponsorship and to really say, will you be my sponsor? Are you willing to really put your career? And recognizing that when someone is your sponsor, that you have to really push and be your best for them because they've put themselves in their line for you.
Great answer. Everything she said. And I like to refer to the difference between mentorship and sponsorship. A mentor will help give advice on how to carry your bucket. A sponsor sort of helps you along carrying that bucket and might even put it through a door for you. I have had the unique experience of having phenomenal mentors throughout the majority of my career, academic and professional, but then experiencing a time in my life where I had none. And it was when I was going through exactly what you described. I was a new supervisor. I was supervising older white male PhDs. They did not like that. And my current group of mentors, and I have, I would say dozens, if not hundreds of mentors, including peer mentors. Everybody is my mentor because everybody has something to teach me. None of them were hitting the mark. And I said, I really need help. I don't know how to navigate the situation. And to have to experience that, and it lasted for quite some time, it was horrendous. I was literally flailing around in the dark, and I thought that I could just be strong enough to get through it. But no, the difference between having a mentor to help you through and not having a mentor to help you through was literally night and day to me. So I needed to have done better in finding new mentors. I had reached out to some people, but it for whatever reason, didn't quite work out. But I definitely encourage everybody I encounter, and I encourage myself and remind myself constantly that that's something that I have to maintain and upkeep and nurture. Relationships with mentors and collecting new ones.
As I navigated the kind of science to policy career trajectory, like a kind of tricky time for me, but I had a mentor that really helped me navigate that, and she wrote my letter of recommendation for the AAAS Science and Technology Policy Fellowship, which I applied for and got, and she just she was maybe in between a mentor and a sponsor. I don't know, but I think I need some sponsors. But I think she kind of just helped give me confidence that things were going to work out okay, because I was not sure that it was going to happen. So anyways, yeah.
So I was lucky enough and fortunate that I had my mentor actually very early in life. My mentor, the first one into the gate, is my godmother, who is my mother's older sister. And so from the time I'm a child, she recognizes the fact that I am just naturally good in mathematics and stuff. And she herself was an engineer before it was called engineering. She graduated actually in math. And it was a good thing that she knew what it was, because my mother didn't. She still thinks I took classes in plumbing at Virginia Tech. So there you go. But it was very, very important to have my godmother cheering me on and telling me you can do this. But it was also great to also get the lessons learned from her generation coming up. She started her career in Rand, and then it would eventually end up at Rockwell working on the Apollo program and then transition to the space shuttle. But this is at a time when she's paid maybe 50 cents on the dollar compared to her male counterparts. And I remember talking to her and saying, doesn't that make you angry? And she said, it could, if that's the only way I would look at things. But I have to remember, because I'm so cheap, I get to be on some of the best projects. And so she saw it as, well, yes, but I got put on the space shuttle, and not everybody got on the space shuttle. So it was all in perspective. And so I do think mentors play a critical role in helping you be that cheerleader that tells you, yes, you can, when you start to have those self-doubts or start to think you've chosen poorly. And they get you that way, which is why I, too, like Dee Dee, spend a lot of my time now mentoring. I actually have a lot of young professional women that I mentor one-on-one here in the D.C. metro area. And I also have been volunteering with GIT, which is an unfortunate name, Girls in Technology, which is part of Women in Technology. It's a high school program focused in encouraging young ladies into STEM. I also serve on the Washington Exec STEM Council. So it's very important for me to keep paying it forward and mentoring those young ladies. And oftentimes I find you start out as a mentor and you end up being that sponsor if you can be. So you step into the sponsor's role where you have any kind of political clout and can help them move forward.
Thank you. Other questions? Gentleman here.
I'm Frank Homer with Whiting Turner. We're a large engineering and construction firm with 3,300 employees, probably going to be hiring 700 within the next year. Wanted to know, what do you guys suggest from a corporate standpoint, what we can do as corporations to generate interest amongst females in the STEM fields?
Oh, question. Anyone?
Well, I think it does start with corporations, and a big part of the good news is that corporations, particularly here in the Washington metro area, have realized there is going to be a significant drought in our pipeline of talent coming in if we don't start doing something about it. We don't have enough. I work actually in the IT space, as I mentioned before, and there's just not enough talent of young students going into school to get IT degrees in this area to fill the pipeline that we know is coming. So corporations have a vested interest to get in there quickly. They are sponsoring things like the USA Science and Engineering Fair, which is coming up in April here in Washington, D.C., Lockheed Martin, Chevron, a lot of them coming in and trying to do everything they can. But I tell everybody, the young ladies in particular and minorities, this typically has to start at home. And for women in particular, it's the father. The father figure believing and endearing his daughter and cheering her on to tell her, you can do this, you are great, is probably the most important factor we can do for our kids in getting them interested. I also think engineering needs to be rebranded because I'm sorry, everybody sees pocket protectors when they hear engineer. Let's face it, and we're not pocket protectors. Well, there are some that are pocket protectors, but a lot of us are just, I like to tell them, we're problem solvers. That's what engineers are. We are problem solvers. We go in, we try to systematically look at the problem, and then figure out how to fix it. And I think we have that is not indicative to only one race or one gender. Everybody can be a problem solver, and that's what we have to communicate.
Can I go? Number one, I have a pocket protector, and I love it. I don't know what it protects me from nowadays, but I have it. And that was a very satisfying answer, and this one might not be as satisfying, but you need to be a place where women want to work. I think recruitment is something completely different from retention. And you need to find places that are rated as places women enjoy working. That has to be somewhere on the internet, that data. Figure out why, and then become that. I think it's really easy to get women and minorities in the door, and then they look around and say, why the heck would I ever stay here? I come to work and I feel horrible. There's a better place for me to be, and then they find that place. Find that place. Go and ask them what they're doing right, and then embrace that. Except for it can't just be top management, because that's not who people encounter when they go to work every day. You have to truly become a culture of acceptance. There's a great, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to endorse things, but a great movement called Dignity and Respect. There's the Dignity and Respect campaign I've found and I've always been huge on the diversity front. It's been the most easily consumable training that I've ever attended because it simplifies it. You don't have to love everybody. You don't have to understand everybody. Just give people dignity and respect. And it's easy to do. Male, female, black, white, red, yellow. Just give them what they deserve, and you also deserve it. And it evens the playing field in a way that I think it allows you to have almost overnight results versus attempting to educate somebody to be a different person or to teach them the lessons that their family didn't teach them growing up.
Any other question? Yes.
I am, excuse me, mentoring a high school senior who would like to be a physician. And she's just wonderful. I was a business major, and that's my field now, so I'm really not so much the science person. So I'm asking you for advice. She is a minority. She's a woman, but also ethnically. She's also an immigrant. And she's from a low-income family, so she's already facing a lot of challenges. And then, we'll talk, and she'll say, oh, but it's all these men, and you have to be so smart, and they go to all the best schools that are so expensive. And I just keep telling, I just try to give her some realistic, positive talk. But what are some things that I ought to be saying to her?
So I think that there's a few things. I think, first of all, it is working through that, kind of helping someone work through the self-doubt and the self-talk, right? And so we all have this self-talk. I think women have it worse than men. Back to the example about men, we say all the time that men really only feel that they need to know 20% of a job before they go after it. Women feel they need to know 80% of a job before they're willing to really try something new. And so really kind of talking through that self-doubt and really putting her in touch with other people, women physicians who are diversity women physicians who have made that journey themselves is really important. Giving her the path and the tools is also important because sometimes it is the access problem that people really have. And so how do I really look at access to grants and to money or financial aid? How do I get access to women who have taken the path, the journey that I have? And so I think those are some of the best things that you can provide to her, as well as really that, kind of continued boost for and support.
Love that answer. I think everybody's mind works differently, but the way that mine does, when I have a lot of doubts, I get organized and structured. And so I would plot out a plan with her, like start at where are you going to be when you're 35 and work backwards from that to figure out what she needs to do. So anytime she gets into that doubtful space, she can look at her timeline and say, what am I supposed to be doing right now? The doubts are going to come, but other than doubting myself, which is going to happen, what do I need to do right now to get where I need to go? And it has nothing to do with the other people on that path. It has 100% to do with her. But finding her a good mentor, male, female, as long as they're a good mentor, I think that's huge and critical, and I love that.
Yeah, I was just gonna say similar. I think having an example of someone she can see, that she can see herself in. And I also think you being from a business background is actually a value add. I mean, because we all know that it's not just about how smart you are to get to medical school. And so I think you being able to help her see that broader perspective is also really valuable.
Yeah, and I would build on even if you're able to find a mentor, whether it's male or female, that would be willing to talk to her, is not just to talk to her, but if possible, I will tell you one of the things that got me through my jitters when I was starting out was the co-oping. And that's where you can do internships or even just allowing her in the office, because when she starts to visualize what she has to do in that role and realize that she can do it, that's when she starts to believe in herself. So I do think the power of internship and co-oping or any type of experience allows them that ability to visualize.
You're transitioning to a sponsor.
Yeah. Well, I think we have time for one more question. This has been a wonderful dialogue. Yep. Sorry. You're going to have to ask your questions one-on-one afterwards. Please.
Hi, I just graduated in 2016, so I'm a newer graduate. And both of my supervisors since then have actually been women. But I actually experience a lot of the same difficulties that other people do with male supervisors. So I was wondering if you guys have experienced any with your women coworkers and supervisors, and kind of how you've dealt with opening that communication with them.
Yeah, so you thought the mean girls stopped in middle school, huh? It doesn't. It doesn't, unfortunately. Unfortunately, I really believe, and this is such an overgeneralization, but women fall into two buckets, and this is the mean girls that you experienced in middle school who are still there, and the women who are really paying it forward and supporting you and lifting you up, and it is unfortunate that sometimes the women supervisors that you will work for and the women leaders that you will work for are absolutely harder on you than the male leaders and male sponsors. And so it is important, one, to recognize that. It's important to recognize that just like you did in school, and you recognize that and you kind of steer yourself away. That's kind of the same thing you have to do in real life. And so I think recognizing that and then finding those other women leaders in the firm who are focused on paying it forward and are focused on really lifting you up, because they can be then your advocates and your sponsors around that. But it is unfortunate that it's still there. Yeah.
So I think that there's a line, and it's between legal and illegal. And if any person's behavior is legal, that's just I can't say the word I usually say. It's a bad word. That ends in whole. That's just that type of person. And you're going to meet so many different flavors of that type of person. And you need to thank her privately in your head for, gosh, thank you for providing me this experience, because I'm learning how to deal with you. I might not overcome you. I've had female supervisors that were horrendous and I could not overcome. That I probably could have. They did cross that line, and I probably could have taken action, and I probably should have taken action, because that behavior shouldn't be encouraged. But as long as they're in the legal realm, the burden is on us to view that as an opportunity. Like, I'm going to encounter many of you, particular type of person, and you're giving me an opportunity every day to exercise different techniques and strategies to deal with you. And some of them will work and some of them won't. But you're going to be stronger because of that.
Yeah, I think everybody up here, if you've worked long enough, you've worked for that somewhat stringent female role supervisor that comes in. And the one piece of advice I would give you when you're in there is that while you're there, as long as they stay in the legal realm, the best thing to do is always document most importantly, your contributions, because facts are irrefutable. And in the tail end, emotion may be one thing, but you can quickly bring emotion out of the equation if you have the facts to back up what you've done and what you've brought to the table. And this is one of the things I really work with my young female proteges, is that when it comes time, take credit for what you did. Women have also a problem with taking credit for their accomplishments. They want to give credit to everybody because they're very team-oriented that way. But in the end, you must keep facts. Tell them it's a 20% improvement. It was a $30,000 savings. Whatever that fact is, get those facts. Those are part of not only your resume, but they're also what builds your performance. And there's very little you can do to negotiate against facts when they prove that you've performed at a high level. Okay?
I would just add that I think that you can have good male supervisors and good female supervisors, right? There's the two kinds of people on both sides. Right. I think when you have a supervisor that isn't so good, it can actually be a really good growing and learning experience for you. And I have gone through that a couple of times. And I think you can take notes about what are they do? They might not be good because for you, maybe they're good for someone else. But you can kind of take mental notes about why you are feeling that way, why you respond to them in that way, and how would you change, how would you be different? Or what are some aspects of what they do that actually are good, is just not how you would normally function? I'm not explaining it very well, but I think you can always learn something from kind of every situation that you're in.
Well, I think we're going to end the presentation here, but we are going to go back in and you can have private conversations with the panelists. We want to formally thank our panelists, and for that, my colleague Matt Winston, Head of Alumni Relations, is going to come up and say a few words.
Good evening. Actually, Matt Winston has the microphone, so he's going to sing something. No. I am Matt Winston. I'm the Senior Vice President for Alumni Relations at Virginia Tech, and having this job gives me the opportunity all the time to go around the country, really around the world, being a big cheerleader and talking about how great not only Virginia Tech is, but how awesome we are at producing some of the most successful, some of the most engaging alumni really on the planet. And I don't really have to do that right now, because I think the four women who served on our panel have demonstrated that for us. And so I'm really glad that they have given a little bit of their time to talk about this particular issue with us. I am going to take a point of privilege, because I do want to ask one more question that I think is relevant to all of this. I'd like to ask each of you, and you can do it as briefly as possible, what was it about your Virginia Tech experience that led to the successes that you're enjoying right now? I hope it's something.
So for me, actually, it was my sorority experience. So I was in a sorority, and I got an experience not only I would have told you before then, I was not a girly girl, and I was not a girl who would enjoy having been in a sorority, but I really learned a lot about relationship building, leadership, because I was in leadership roles. I then worked for my sorority for a year after college, and I learned a lot about building relationships and enduring relationships and leadership that I'm not sure I would have learned in any other place.
Mine is a really odd answer. I grew up in Peachy County. I'm a 5th and 6th generation DC native. I had a very diverse experience growing up. And when I went to Virginia Tech, it was one of the first times I ever had older white male mentors. And working in fish and wildlife, they're everywhere. Right. So I got exposure to how wonderful all people could be. And exposure to the culture of fish and wildlife. Because again, growing up in Peachy County, it's not as if I encountered a lot of people in the fish and wildlife scene, but the college that I went to reflected that culture beautifully and got me very comfortable living with that as my reality. And I clearly stuck with it because I love it. But I credit them with providing me the most wonderful entrance into that world.
I would say, so I did my PhD at Virginia Tech in biochemistry, and a PhD is just a painful process. But Virginia Tech really allowed me a safe space, really, to do that PhD, to try things and fail and fall on my face and mature and grow up and meet my husband. It was a place where I had mentors, both my advisor, people on my committee, other people around that not only cared about me professionally, but cared about me personally. And, because of that, I was able to get my PhD, thank God.
And for me, I think it goes back actually to the Virginia Tech motto, Ut Prosim, that we may serve. I think our culture and the way that we train at Virginia Tech is in the line of service, and we're taught that that's your responsibility is to get out there and be good citizens and make a difference and an impact. It started for me co-oping and forcing me to actually put hands on to what I was learning. And then I think by the time I got to my senior project where they made us go down and actually do a consulting for APC, Aluminum Products Company, down in Mount Airy, North Carolina, a whole year of that, putting a project together with recommendations that were very hands-on, it really kind of gave us the feeling that we could do this. And I will tell you, from when I hire from Virginia Tech when I can, or the other MUUs, because I find that students come from Virginia Tech are ready to roll up their sleeves on day one, and it shows.
What an awesome commercial. Thank you for doing that.
They didn't pay us.
That was better than any Super Bowl commercial I saw this past day. Simone, I want to offer, you talked about the bad acronym GET, Girls in Technology. Can I offer you one? It might be, if you change it to FIT, Females in Technology, I think that makes a better bumper sticker and hashtag, right? I'm really glad that our panelists shared a little bit with us today. Let's give them a hand. We have some parting gifts that we would like to deliver to each of our panelists. You got half, I got half.
So much.
I would also like to thank Dean Grant for introducing the program for us this evening. Certainly to Dean Morton for moderating this session. She did an awesome job with that. Let's give two of our deans a big hand. I want to thank all of those who are watching us from somewhere other than being here. Thank you for tuning in to the live stream. We're glad that you could join us even though you couldn't be here with us. Let's give the people watching a hand. How about that? I particularly want to thank each of you for coming out and spending a little time with us this evening. I hope that you found this to be a beneficial experience for you and that you will continue to network and fellowship when we walk out the door this evening. And then I don't want this to be the last experience that you have with Virginia Tech. There's so many things that we would love to get you to do for us, with us. Come back to campus. Come back and see us. Come back and see the awesome university that continues to grow and expand each and every day. Come and drive in two directions around the drill field. It still freaks me out that you can do that. Come back and spend some time with our students, each and every one of you. Come back and share with them the benefit of your experience and the things that you're doing, and to let them know that they do and have the opportunities to find mentors and ultimately maybe even sponsors from the greatest network alive, and that's the Hokie Nation. So come back and do that with us. Stay connected with us. There are so many people who don't take advantage of the opportunity to just update their information in our database. I know some people get afraid that you're going to get a bunch of crazy calls, but really it's the way that we keep up with you. And I can't tell you how many times I go someplace and we have an event like this and someone says, how come I didn't get the email? I had to get it from somewhere else. And then my response after going back and doing the research is you never updated your information, maybe even from the time you graduated. So I still think you live at your parents' house, right? So some of you do still live at your parents' house. But stay in touch with us and stay engaged with us, because we can't be a great university if you don't remain engaged with your university, as many of the great universities do. So I'm glad that you're here tonight. Let's not make this your last engagement with Virginia Tech. There are members of several of your colleges, whatever college you come from, several of our college alumni directors are here, so you can find out ways to engage with them, ways that you can connect with them individually, perhaps ways that you and your companies that you represent can connect with Virginia Tech, particularly in efforts to engage our young women who are studying on our campus, particularly in the STEM disciplines. So we're excited for these opportunities. We're glad you're here. I always say that Virginia Tech produces the greatest set of alums on the planet, and that includes each of you. In fact, what I always say is, know that the world expects extraordinary things from us because we are graduates of Virginia Tech. I'm glad that you were here. I appreciate your engagement, and we'll end this by saying, go Hokies. Yeah. Wait, I got one more thing I got to say. For those of you here and you didn't get a chance to get your parking validation ticket, you can get it at the front desk. Okay. Please, let's all go back outside and enjoy fellowship and networking.